Welcome to Archive Whispers, a place to fall asleep. Settle in, lower the lights, and let the archive open. The stone of the temple roof is still warm under your bare feet. You are standing high above Thebes on the eastern bank of the Nile, and the sandstone is giving back the day's heat slowly, the way a loaf gives back the heat of the oven. Across the river, the last red light of evening is thinning above a low, rounded ridge of pale rock on the western horizon. The air smells of water, wet mud, cut reeds, the cool breath of the river moving in the dark below. Behind you, the city has gone quiet. A dove settles somewhere among the column tops, and the first night wind is finding its way over the parapet. Low in the southeast, above the dark line of the hills, the first star has come out. Small, steady, the color of lamplight seen through linen. Others will follow in their own order, an order this temple knows by heart. Tonight you will keep the hours the way the temple keeps them, by the crossing of stars overhead, and by water falling drop by drop from a calcite vessel carved in the reign of Amenhotep III, 2 centuries before this night. This is the work of the wnw, the Hour Watcher, and tonight that work is yours. But no one keeps the watch unwashed. Down the dark stairs at the sacred lake, the cold water is waiting for you first, as the rules require, while the last light goes. The stars will not wait for you, but they are in no hurry either. Nothing here is. The water of the sacred lake is cold around your ankles. Under your feet, the stone step is worn smooth, and a little slick where the water has stood on it all day. The night smells of river mud and clean linen. Somewhere behind you, the temple is closing itself for the evening. You can hear doors, small and far away. On the black water, the stars lie doubled, resting on the surface. You go down one more step and begin to wash. You pour water over your head with both hands. There is no hair to hold it. Your scalp and your whole body are shaved smooth, as the rule of purity requires, and the water runs off you in one long movement. You rinse your mouth with a pinch of natron, the salt gathered from dry lake beds, and it tastes of stone and faintly of the sea. The cold reaches your bones slowly, without unkindness. A Wab priest is called pure because he is washed. Tonight, before you climb to the roof, you make yourself pure in the old way. You climb the steps out of the water and stand dripping on the stone coping. The lake is a long rectangle of still water, more than 100 paces on its longer side, lined everywhere with cut stone. It was dug on the orders of Thutmose III, some 300 years before this night, and priests have purified themselves in it ever since. Its water stands for Nun, the dark ocean that existed before the world began. You dry yourself and dress, a clean kilt of white linen, folded and pressed, and flat sandals woven of papyrus. Wool never enters this place. Linen, only linen, against washed skin. Your way to the stair crosses the edge of the great columned hall. There are 134 columns in that hall. The 12 tallest stand along the center, crowned with open flowers of papyrus carved in stone, and the lesser columns crowd close around them, their stone buds still shut, so that the whole hall is a marsh made permanent. It was raised under Seti I, more than a century before this night, and his son Ramesses II finished its carving. By day it is full of color. Now thin moonlight comes down through the stone grills below the roof and lies across the floor in pale, quiet ladders, and you walk through them alone. The stair to the roof opens from a plain doorway and climbs inside the thickness of the wall itself. It is narrow. Your shoulders nearly touch on both sides, and it turns as it rises, so you climb mostly by feel and habit. The newest temple in the precinct, the house of Khonsu, the moon god, has a stair like this one beside its sanctuary, and temple roofs all over Egypt are reached this way, through the quiet inside of a wall. Here the stone is cool at last, beyond the reach of the day's sun. Your sandals make a soft, papery sound on every step. Above you, a thin slot of night sky comes nearer. Then the wall ends, and the sky begins. You step out onto the roof of the god's house, a flat field of sandstone slabs laid across stone beams, level as a threshing floor, with a low parapet at the edge. You kneel to set your bundle down, and under your hand the slab is still faintly warm. The stone has been drinking sunlight all day. It will spend the whole night giving that warmth slowly back, and only toward dawn will it finally run cold. A small, steady wind moves across the roof, coming off the river. Between you and the stars there is nothing at all now but that low wall of stone. You stand at the parapet a moment before the work begins. Below, the city has nearly finished with its lamps. A few ember-colored points remain among the flat mud brick houses, and one by one they go out. The Nile is a wide band of moonlight, moving without hurry. On the far bank, the desert cliffs stand pale above the dark fields, and at their highest point rises the peak your people call, simply, the Peak. A goddess is said to keep that mountain, Meridian, she who loves silence. Hers is a good name for this hour. Even the river seems to lower its voice. Beneath your feet, the temple is not asleep. It is only quiet. At dusk, the sanctuary doors were drawn shut, tied with cord, and sealed with a pressed lump of gray Nile clay. The god rests behind them in the dark. But small lamps are kept burning in the corridors, and at set hours of this night, priests below will rise and speak the words that belong to those hours, for the sun is held to be traveling now through the Duat, the world beneath the world, and the temple keeps him company along the way. A god's house never fully sleeps. It waits in shifts. Tonight, the timing of all that waiting is yours. Your language has a word for hour, wnwty. When a scribe writes it, one of the signs he sets down is a star. That is not an ornament. It is a memory of where hours come from, because the hours of the night were first found on rooftops like this one, by men watching stars cross the dark. The watcher who keeps them is called a wnwty, an hour watcher. It is not a priesthood apart. For most of the year you are an ordinary man of the temple, a scribe with accounts and duties, and a household that misses you. But your group holds the service this month. Tonight the watch is yours, and so are the hours. You unroll your linen bundle and lay out the instruments in their order. First, the merket. Its name means instrument of knowing, which is a large name for a small thing. A straight handle of dark wood, shorter than your forearm, with a fine flax cord hanging from one end, and a little drop-shaped weight at the end of the cord. Held up, the cord falls into a perfect line, pointing at the center of the earth. That is all it does. It hangs still, and by its stillness, tonight, you will judge the whole moving sky. You lay it down on the stone as gently as you would lay down a sleeping thing. Beside it you lay the bay. It is nothing more than the stripped rib of a date palm frond, pale and light and stiff, with a narrow notch cut into its wider end. You will hold the notch close to your eye and look through it at the southern sky, the way a builder sights along a string. A palm rib and a hanging cord. With these two simple things, the temple divides the night. Last comes the writing board, ruled with a grid, its small stars entered in red and black ink for this half of the month. You know its rows the way the singers below know their hymns. You will check them anyway. None of this belongs to you. Instruments, board, lamp, clock, they are the god's property, passed into your keeping at the start of the month, when your watch group took over the temple's service. There are 4 such groups, and each one is called a say. Each serves 1 lunar month in turn, and at every handover the outgoing and the incoming groups count whatever can be counted and enter it in the temple day book, agreeing formally that all is in order. If a bowl goes missing during your month, your group answers for it. No one remembers a time before this system. It has run for centuries. Then, with both hands, you carry the water clock to its station near the parapet. It is a vessel of calcite, the pale alabaster stone that lets a little light pass through, shaped like a flower pot, wide at the rim and narrowing toward the base, its outer wall carved with stars and gods. It was made in the reign of Amenhotep III, 200 years before this night, and it has measured darkness for the temple ever since. Near the bottom is a single tiny hole, and just above the hole sits a small carved baboon, the animal of Thoth, who counts all things. The water will leave one drop at a time under his eye. Light comes last, so that your eyes keep their friendship with the dark. The lamp is a shallow saucer of fired clay. The wick is a strip of linen, twisted and laid over the rim with one end down in the fuel. The fuel is whatever the storerooms issue. Vegetable oils sometimes, castor pressed from local seed, but above all animal fat, which burns with the least smoke. You touch the wick with a live coal, and a flame the size of a thumbnail stands and steadies. A wick like this lasts less than an hour, so you have brought a sheaf of spares. You set the lamp low behind a block of stone, out of your own eyes. Now you fill the clock, pouring slowly from a tall water jar until the water stands just below the rim. The surface trembles, and the stars tremble in it. Then both are still. Inside the rim run 12 columns of small drilled marks, one for each month of the year. As the water sinks through the night, you will read its level against the column that belongs to this month. A first drop gathers at the tiny hole beneath the baboon and falls into the stone basin with a sound almost too small to be called a sound. Another follows it. From now until dawn, that quiet falling will not stop. Tonight, you will keep the hours the way the temple has always kept them, by falling water and by the stars. One thing remains. Scored into the roof stone, shallow and straight, runs a line laid out long ago from north to south. The meridian, the road every star in the sky must sooner or later cross. You seat yourself on the line, facing south, where the hour stars will pass, and you settle your kilt beneath you and let your breathing find the pace of the drip. The merket rests in your lap, the bay lies by your knee. The lamp burns small behind you. The clock is already at its patient work. The first hour of the night is on its way, and there is nothing left to do now but watch. Somewhere behind you, water is falling, one drop at a time. It has fallen all evening, so steadily that your ears stopped reporting it hours ago. Now, with the first sighting done, you let yourself hear it again. You turn from the parapet. In the sheltered corner of the roof, on a squared block of sandstone, stands a pale stone vessel about as tall as your forearm, a small clay lamp burning beside it. From a tiny hole near its base, a thread of water slides down into a shallow stone basin, drop joining drop with a soft, unhurried patience. This is the temple's other timekeeper, and it is older than anyone now alive. You crouch beside it, and the lamp flame steadies in the shelter of your body. The vessel is calcite, the stone some call Egyptian alabaster, so fine that light passes into it and gets quietly lost. Where the flame sits close, the wall glows faintly from within, a warm cream color, like honey held up to the sun and then dimmed almost to nothing. The walls are barely a finger thick. Under your palm, the stone is smooth and cool, still keeping a little of the day's warmth low near the base. Inside, the black surface of the water rests without a ripple, sinking too slowly for any eye to catch it moving. The shape is simple and deliberate. A wide flower pot of stone, broad at the rim, narrow at the foot, the sides sloping in one clean line. The rim is wider than both your hands could span, and the vessel is old, older than the newest courts of the temple beneath you. It was carved in the reign of Amenhotep III, who ruled from about 1390 to 1352 BCE, some 200 years before this night. His figure is cut into its outer wall, making offerings forever. Priests you never met filled this vessel at sunset. Priests you never met leaned over its rim with their lamps and read the hours. Tonight, that duty is yours. At dusk, While the light was still draining out of the west, a younger priest carried water up the stairs and filled the vessel nearly to the rim, as it is filled every evening. Since then, it has been quietly giving that water back. Low on the outer wall there is a single tiny hole, and above it, carved in the stone, a small baboon sits on a pillar. The baboon is the animal of Thoth, the god of reckoning, of writing, and of the moon, the lord of the counting of time. Every drop that leaves the vessel passes beneath his seat, as if the god himself were letting the night out, one bead of water at a time. Bring the lamp closer, and the outer wall wakes. 3 bands of carving circle the vessel. In the highest, the Decan Stars sail in little boats, with gods of the planets standing among them. In the middle walk the constellations of the northern sky, flanked by rows of quiet deities. In the lowest, the king appears again and again between the 12 gods of the months. One larger scene interrupts them, Amenhotep III offering to Re-Horakti, the falcon-headed sun, with Thoth standing behind. The carved lines were once filled with slivers of colored stone, and here and there a fragment remains, catching your flame and giving back a small point of color, like a star fallen into the carving. Now lean over the rim and hold the lamp low. Inside, the vessel keeps its working secret. 12 narrow columns of small drilled marks run down the inner wall, each column framed by carved signs of life and endurance, the Ankh and the Jade. 11 little hollows to a column, none deeper than the press of a fingertip. Around the inside of the rim, above each column, a month is named. 12 columns for 12 months. Whoever reads this vessel must first know the calendar, because the clock does not offer one answer. It offers 12, and on any given night, 11 of them are wrong. The reason is the night itself. Your hours are not fixed things. A night hour is 1/12 of the darkness, however long the darkness happens to be. In winter, when the sun crosses low and briefly, the nights stretch long, and so do their hours. In summer both shrink. So the column for the month of the winter solstice is the longest ladder of marks. The summer column is the shortest, and the months between step gradually from one to the other. The scale itself is older than the vessel. The craftsmen copied a pattern of marks that was already centuries old when their drills first touched this stone. Nothing about this clock was invented in a hurry. Reading it is simple, and you have done it half your life. You steady the lamp above the rim, so that the flame shows in the black mirror of the water, and you find the column of the present month. Then you see where the waterline stands against its ladder of marks, much the way a modern cook reads the level in a measuring jug against the scale printed on its side. Tonight the water has sunk past the second mark and is easing toward the third. The second hour of the night is spent. The third is passing. You do not hurry. The level will not touch the next mark for a long while yet. Even the slope of the walls is knowledge, set down in stone. A straight-sided vessel empties quickly at first, and then more and more slowly, as the weight of water above the hole grows less. The sloping sides are the answer. As the level falls, the vessel narrows, and the two effects lean against each other, so that the drip stays nearly even from dusk to dawn. The craftsmen who worked this out wrote no explanation. They measured and adjusted and handed the proportions on. The mathematics of falling water would not be written down as a law for nearly 3,000 years more, and yet the water in this vessel has been obeying it all night. There is a story that belongs to vessels like this one, and on a long watch there is time to remember it. Nearly 400 years before tonight, in the early years of the 18th dynasty, there lived a court official named Amenemhat, who served under King Amenhotep I around 1525 to 1504 BCE. His tomb was cut into the western hills across the river, the same dark ridge you can see from this roof. In its inscriptions, he recorded a patient observation that the length of the night is not constant, but grows and shrinks from month to month across the year. He had watched and counted and written it down. And then, his tomb text claims, he acted on what he had seen. He says that he studied first, reading in the writings of the works of the gods, and that he then made an instrument which measured the changing hours of the night, a vessel that let its water run out through a single exit, that carried figures of the sky upon its body, and that showed the hours precisely. He claims no one had made such a thing before him. Whether that is truth or a proud man's epitaph, no one now can say, but his is the oldest record of a water clock anywhere, and he called his device a merkit, an instrument of knowing. As for why a temple needs such an instrument, later vessels of this very shape say it plainly, in words cut into their stone, to tell the hours when the sun and the stars are not visible. Clouds are rare over Thebes, but they do come. And beneath your feet, in the body of the temple, there are rooms that no star has ever reached, windowless, black, and holy. The rituals of the night must happen there at their proper hours, the offerings made at the right time, whether or not any sky can be seen. On such nights, everything below waits on this dripping stone, and on the priest who knows how to read it. You might wonder how well the old clock keeps its promise. Modern tests with careful copies of such vessels show that they run about 10 minutes slow across the first 6 hours of the night, then slightly fast across the second 6, ending a full night within 10 or 20 minutes of true. For stone, water, and one small hole, that is a quiet kind of precision, and it is more than enough. No offering below requires the splitting of moments. An hour that arrives a few breaths early or late is still the hour, and the temple has been content with this arrangement for 200 years. You straighten up, and the night air finds you again, moving slowly off the river and over the parapet. The lamp flame leans and recovers. Behind you the drip goes on with its patient count, unbothered by wind, unbothered by you. While you stood remembering a dead official, the water sank a little further down its ladder. The vessel keeps the hour whether or not anyone is watching, which is, in the end, the whole point of it. You leave the lamp burning beside the pale stone. Your eyes will want the darkness now, and the clock has never once needed the light. You walk back toward the parapet and lift your face to the east, out over the dark line of the temple roofs. Low above the haze of the horizon, new stars are climbing, faint ones first, the quiet outriders of the hour to come. Somewhere among them is the Decan you are waiting for, the star whose crossing will mark the next division of the night. The water clock drips behind you, the sky turns ahead of you, and between them stands one priest with a plumb line, keeping the two accounts in agreement. You settle your feet on the cool stone, and you begin, again, to watch. The night has settled fully over the temple roof now, and the wind comes off the river in long, unhurried breaths. You sit with your back against the parapet, the stone still holding a little of the day's warmth, and above you the sky is crowded with stars from one horizon to the other. They are not scattered, to your eye. They are arranged. Each one stands where last night left it, only a little earlier, a little further along its road. The small lamp in its clay saucer burns low beside your knee. For this part of the watch you barely need it. The light you work by now is overhead. You turn your face to the southeast, past the dark shoulder of the pylon, toward the low place beyond the wall where the stars come up. That strip of sky is your working ground. Out of it, in the course of any night, star after star climbs into view, in an order that does not change, at a pace that does not hurry. You have watched this rim of the world since you were a boy learning the lists, and it has never once surprised you. That is its gift. The whole art of the hour watcher rests on one quiet fact. The sky keeps its appointments. The stars you serve have a name. Later peoples will call them the Decans, 36 of them in all, a chain of stars and small star groups strung along the southern sky. Each Decan takes a turn as marker of the hours, and each turn lasts roughly 10 days. Then the next in line takes over. A text carved at Abydos, in the reign of Seti I, more than a century before your night, states it plainly. Every 10 days one star sinks away into the west, and another reappears in the east, and so it goes the whole year round. 36 stars, 36 10-day turns, one slow relay carrying the year. 10 days is not a strange number here. It is the shape of the week itself. The civil year runs 365 days, 12 months of 30 days each, and every month divided into 3 weeks of 10 days, 36 weeks, one for each decan. At the year's end come 5 days that belong to no month at all, kept as the birthdays of the gods, Osiris, Horus, Seth, Isis, and Nephthys. 3 seasons carry the months between them: the flood, the emergence of the fields, the harvest, and the decans walk above all 3 without pausing. And as the decans divide the year, so they divide the night. Through the hours of darkness, 12 of them in turn cross the high line of the sky, and each crossing marks an hour. 12 crossings, 12 hours of night. These are not the fixed hours of later ages. They are twelfths of the darkness itself. So a winter hour runs long and a summer hour runs short, and no one on this roof finds that strange. Even the word for hour, what, is written with a star among its signs, and that sign was already being carved in royal tombs more than 1,000 years before tonight. Hours were born on rooftops like this one. One star anchors the whole chain. In her season, low in the east before dawn, she outshines everything else in the sky. Sopdet, the brightest star there is, the one that later peoples will call Sirius. Near her stride the stars of Sa, whom those same peoples will call Orion. In the paintings, Sopdet is a goddess standing in a slender boat, wearing a tall crown topped with a single star, and Sa is a striding god who glances back over his shoulder. In the sky itself she is simpler than that, a steady point of white fire above the horizon. Every list of the decans begins with her. Sopdet also teaches the decans their strangest habit. For about 70 days in every year she is gone, lost in the glare of the sun, invisible from dusk to dawn. Then, on one particular midsummer morning, she returns, a brief white spark above the eastern horizon just before sunrise, gone again as the light rises. That morning announces the swelling of the river, the flood that feeds the whole country, and in the ideal reckoning it is Wep Renpet, the opening of the year, New Year's Day itself. A single star 70 days absent, one dawn of return, and the calendar of a kingdom resting upon it. There is a teaching about where a star goes in those 70 days. The scribes keep it in a work they call the Fundamentals of the Course of the Stars, drawn beneath the figure of Nut, the sky goddess arched over the earth. It is carved at Abydos in the cenotaph of Seti I, and in these very years it is being painted again onto the ceiling of the tomb cut for Ramesses, fourth of that name, in the great valley beneath the western cliffs. It teaches that a decan, when it sets for the last time, does not die. It enters the Duat, the world beneath the world, into the keeping of Geb, and there for 70 days it is cleansed and made new. 70 days is a number every family in Thebes knows from the other side of life. It is the ideal span of the embalmer's work, from the day a body enters their care to the day it is returned, wrapped and whole for burial. The star teaching uses the embalmer's own language. In its lines, the decans pass their hidden days in the embalming place of the sky, being purified, being restored. The same 70 days. No one who keeps this watch would call that chance. What happens to a star, the old text says in its quiet way, is what is hoped for a person, to set, to be renewed, and to rise again. None of this lore is new. 9 centuries and more before tonight, in the towns of Middle Egypt, craftsmen were already painting star tables inside the lids of coffins, so that the dead lay looking up at a chart of the night. Those old tables were grids of star names. 36 columns for the 36 10-day weeks of the year, 12 rows for the 12 hours of the night, the names stepping down the grid like stairs as the seasons turned. The dead were given clocks. And it is the same knowledge you hold now, passed from hand to hand across 900 years, corrected, recopied, and carried up at last onto this roof. 3 centuries before your night, in the reign of the woman king Hatshepsut, her steward Senenmut had the whole sky drawn onto the ceiling of a chamber cut deep beneath her temple across the river. It is the oldest full picture of the heavens anyone is known to have made. On its southern half stand the 36 deacons in their columns, with Sa striding in his boat and Sopdet crowned behind him. On its northern half are 12 circles for the 12 months, each cut into 24 parts, and around them the constellations of the never-setting north. No lamp visits that chamber now. But draftsmen still copy its patterns, ceiling after ceiling, tomb after tomb. On those ceilings, the northern sky is a scene. A hippopotamus goddess stands upright at its center, holding fast to a mooring post, and tethered to that post, on some drawings by a line of small dots, is Mesketiu, drawn as a bull, the 7 bright stars your own eyes know best. Even the old water clock beside you carries a version of the picture, cut into its outer wall in the days of the 3rd Amenhotep, 200 years ago. The meaning is plain to any watcher. The northern stars are moored. They swing around their post all night and all year, and they are never permitted to set. You lean your head back and find them now, over the northern parapet, 7 clear stars, the foreleg of the bull, lying low along the horizon at this hour of this season. There is no bright star at the pivot of the sky. The heavens simply turn around a dark, empty point, and Mesketiu wheels about it, night after night, never once dipping below the earth. The old lists call such stars the Ikemusek, the ones that do not know destruction. You steer by them. The never-setting north is where this country has always looked when it wanted a picture of something that does not end. There is one flaw in all this order, and every watcher learns it early. The civil year of 365 days is slightly too short, so it slips against the sky, about 1 day in every 4 years. Slowly, across lifetimes, New Year's Day wanders away from the morning of Sopdet's return. Only after some 1460 years do the two come home together again. Star tables drawn for 1 generation drift out of true for the next. Even the hour scales inside a water clock age. The coffin tables of 9 centuries ago no longer fit the nights they were painted for. Nothing made by hands keeps perfect time. The watchers have always known it, and it has never troubled them. When the tables and the sky disagree, the sky is right. That is the whole rule. The lists are servants, the stars are the masters. So each generation of hour watchers checks the old columns against the actual night, notes where a star now rises early or crosses late, and quietly amends the copy. The correction never announces itself. It happens the way it is happening now, one man on a roof, comparing what is written with what is overhead, and trusting what is overhead. The sky has no errors in it. Only the records do. But trusting the sky raises the night's real question, the one your whole office exists to answer. It is not enough to know which star carries this hour. You must catch the moment it crosses the line, the unseen line that runs from the northern point of turning, up over your head and down to the southern horizon. A star approaches that line slowly, crosses it in silence, and leaves it without a sign. Eyes alone can be argued with. So beside your knee, wrapped in a fold of linen, lie 2 small answers to that problem: a dark wooden handle with a hanging cord, and a notched rib of palm. Their turn is coming. For now you sit a while longer with the stars themselves. The wind moves along the parapet. The water clock keeps its small, patient count beside you, 1 drop and then another. Overhead, the decans go on with their slow procession, each in its place, each on its way, exactly as they went for the coffin painters 9 centuries ago, and for Senenmut's draftsmen 3 centuries ago. The night is deep, and it is held. You may let your eyes rest on the dark between the stars. Nothing up there will hurry. Nothing up there has ever hurried. The wind has settled into its night rhythm now, moving low across the roof of the great temple, carrying river damp and the faint dust of the western desert. You stand a moment at the parapet and let your eyes rest on the star field, which has turned appreciably since the watch began. Below you, the precinct of Amun lies in darkness, its courts and halls holding the day's warmth deep in the stone. Behind you, on the flat sandstone paving, a straight line runs true from north to south, scored into the slabs and darkened with age. Everything the next hours require is gathered along that line. It is time to sit down to the work itself. Your companion for the watch is already seated at the southern end of the line, a fellow priest of the hour staff, his shaven head and white linen faintly pale in the starlight. You lower yourself to the paving at the northern end, facing him, and the two of you settle until you are still. This is how the watch is kept. 2 men on the meridian line, one to watch and one to be watched. He will hold his back straight and his shoulders level until you release him. Between his body and the southern stars, the whole geometry of the night will be read. Neither of you speaks. The wind moves, the stone is quiet, the work begins. In your left hand you hold the merkit, whose name means the instrument of knowing. It is a modest thing for such a name, a slim handle of near black ebony, about the length of your forearm, with a small block at one end from which a fine flax cord hangs down to a little stone weight. When the cord stops swinging, it marks a perfect vertical. The earth itself pulls it true. Along the handle runs a single line of small incised signs, filled with yellow pigment and worn soft at the edges by many hands. You steady the cord and wait for the weight to hang dead still. In your right hand is the bay, the sighting rib, the stripped midrib of a date palm frond, pale and fibrous, with a narrow notch cut into its wider end in the shape of a V. You raise the notch close to your eye and look through it, past the dark silhouette of your companion, toward the southern sky. Held so, the rib narrows the whole heaven to a single slot. Between the notch, the hanging plumb line, and the still shoulders of the man opposite, you now have everything the observation needs. A true vertical, a fixed mark, and a sky full of stars moving slowly toward their appointed places. The title you carry is wnwty, the Hour Watcher, from wnwty, the word for hour, which the scribes write with the sign of a star. The word is old. It appears in the pyramid writings of kings who died more than 1,000 years before you were born. wnwty names the hour, and it also names the whole rotating staff of the temple's hour priesthood. The fuller title, wnwty, means one who is in his hour. The hours themselves are not fixed lengths. Night is divided into 12, however long the darkness lasts, so winter hours run long and summer hours run short, and no 2 nights of the year keep quite the same time. Beside you, weighted at its corners against the wind, lies the star table for this half-month, copied in red and black ink on papyrus. There are 24 of these tables, one for each 15-day span, and each lists 13 stars, one for the fall of darkness, then one for every hour through to dawn. As the year advances, each star rises a little earlier night by night. So a star that marks the 6th hour in this table will mark the 5th in the next, drifting down the sequence toward the dusk edge until it retires from the list altogether, while a new star enters at the dawn end. The tables keep the whole slow procession in order. You know tonight's column by heart, but the papyrus lies open anyway. The table does not give numbers or degrees, it gives positions on a man. Beneath the grid of each table a seated figure is drawn, and each star's entry names the place where it will stand against him at its hour, opposite the heart, which means on the meridian itself, on the left eye, on the right ear, on the left shoulder. 7 stations in all, from shoulder to shoulder, mapped across a human frame. So the man seated across from you is the chart made flesh. When tonight's hour star stands where the table says it will, against his dark outline, the hour has arrived, and not before. Most of the watch is waiting. Your companion holds still, you hold the line and the rib, and watch a point of light creep with the patience of the sky itself. Whether every temple in the land keeps the watch exactly this way, with 2 seated men, no writing troubles to say, the tables record only the stars and their stations, and leave the sitting to those who sit. So you watch. To the west, beyond the river, the low pale ridge above the Valley of the Dead Kings holds its rounded shoulder against the stars. The star you are waiting for climbs by a breadth you could cover with a fingertip. Then it is there. The star you have watched for the better part of an hour stands at last on the left shoulder of the seated man, exactly where the table promised, and in the same slow moment the plumb cord, the notch, and the star agree. You lower the rib. There is no ceremony in it. You simply say the hour, quietly, into the night air. The name of the star, and the wound it has brought your companion eases his shoulders. Somewhere behind you the water clock goes on dripping its agreement into the basin. The 4th hour of the night has come to the roof of the temple of Amun. The hour does not stay on the roof. A junior of the hour staff, waiting by the stairhead, carries it down the narrow steps into the temple, where the night services are ordered hour by hour. For the sun god does not rest between dusk and dawn. Ra travels the 12 hours of the duat, the world beneath the world, and each hour of his passage has its own perils and its own proper rites. The priests below keep those rites in step with the sky you are reading. In this way, your quiet word on the roof becomes lamplight and incense in the halls beneath, at the correct moment and no other. Before the next waiting begins, you make the record. The scribe's kit sits by your knee, a reed brush, its tip frayed to softness, a small palette with cakes of red and black ink, a strip of papyrus, and beside it a flake of pale limestone for rough notes. You wet the brush, touch the black, and set down the hour and its star in a few compact signs. Red is for headings and beginnings, black is for the body of the entry. The ink dries almost at once in the desert air. It is a small act, but the temple runs on such small acts, night after night, year after year. The instruments you are holding are older than you are, and older than your father. Ebony handles like this one were being cut in the reign of Tutankhamun, nearly 2 centuries before tonight. One of them carries an inscription for that king, recording him renewing a monument of his grandfather. And the small block that guides a plumb line was made in this same pattern for Amenhotep III, in whose reign the great water clock beside you was shaped. 200 years of hands have smoothed these tools. The design has not needed to change, because the sky it measures has not appeared to change either. Where does a star table come from? From the house of life, the Parank, the temple's house of books, where scribes copy and recopy the rolls that keep Egypt in order, calendars and rituals, cures and star lists, all under the protection of Thoth. Across the river, in the memorial temple of Ramesses II, there is such a house, and its copyists renew the tables as the drifting year slowly pulls the old ones out of true. The table at your knee was copied in such a house, checked line by line against an older roll, which was checked in its day against one older still. Knowledge in this country is a chain of careful hands. The watchers of the hours have their remembered names. 2 centuries ago, under Amenhotep III, the art belonged to no less a man than Amun, second prophet of Amun and brother of Queen Tiye, the king's own wife. His statue, cut in dark granodiorite, shows him wrapped in a leopard skin mantle, and whoever carved it gave the leopard spots the shape of 5-pointed stars, so that he wears the night sky itself across his shoulders. The inscription beside the mantle calls him one who knows the procession of the sky. That, in the end, is the whole profession, held in a single carved line. The same tables you are using tonight go with the kings into the ground. In the valley beyond that western ridge, the royal tombs are cut deep into the rock, and the hour stars in their seated figure are copied onto their ceilings, so that a dead king, sailing the hours of the duat, may know the time of night exactly as you know it here. It pleases you, in a mild way, to think of it. The same 13 stars, the same stations on the body, serving a king below the earth and a tired priest above the temple. The ridge across the river keeps its dark profile. The Nile carries a faint gleam of moon. The watch resumes its shape. Your companion straightens. You lift the rib and find the plumb line stillness again. The table's next entry names the next star and its station, this one to stand opposite the heart, dead on the meridian between you. Hour by hour, the procession will hand itself along, each star arriving at the body of the seated man like a traveler reaching a known door. The 5th hour is already climbing somewhere below the eastern rim of the sky. You settle your wrist, the small stone weight comes to rest, and the waiting begins again, which is most of the work, and the best of it. The city below has gone almost entirely dark. The last ember lights among the mud brick houses have burned down to nothing, and the only glow left in Thebes is the temple's own, a lamp at the stairhead, a lamp deep in the sanctuary, the faint pallor of starlight on the river. Beside you, the old water clock keeps its thin thread falling, the level sinking past the drilled marks of this month's scale, agreeing patiently with the stars. The wind has dropped to its smallest voice. You are entering the deep middle stretch of the watch, where the hours widen and the world forgets, for a while, that it is a world. There is nothing that needs doing for a little while. The star of the 5th hour is still low. Your companion rests where he sits. The ink is dry on the record. You draw your linen closer against the cooling air and let your gaze drift to the northern stars, the ones the old texts call ikemusek, the imperishable, which never rise and never set, but only turn slowly about the hub of the sky. The temple beneath you breathes its stone breath. The river slides. Somewhere below, a priest trims a wick. The deep middle of the night is coming on, unhurried, and you will keep it company, hour by measured hour, until it passes. The deepest part of the night has arrived, and the roof has grown quiet around you. The wind that combed the parapet at dusk has thinned to almost nothing, only a faint movement of cold air across the stone. Under your feet, the sandstone slabs, warm when you climbed the stair, have long since given up the last of the day's heat. You draw your linen closer around your shoulders. The water clock drips beside you at its own unhurried pace. Nothing in the sky needs you for a little while. This is the hour when the watch becomes mostly waiting, and the waiting becomes mostly stillness. You walk to the parapet and look out over the sleeping city. Thebes lies low and dark along the river, a spread of flat mud brick roofs with here and there an ember of lamplight where someone tends a late fire. The great temple beneath you is dark as well. The courts, the tall gateways, the aisles of papyrus columns, all of it resting. Off to the south, the sacred lake where the priests wash before their duties holds a thin film of stars on its black water. The Nile beyond the walls is a broad band of faint silver, moving north too far below to be heard from this height. Across the river, the western cliffs stand as a long dark wall against the stars. At their highest point rises the peak, a natural summit of pale rock above the hidden valley where the kings of this age are laid to rest, and where the villages of the tomb workers sleep among the hills. The peak belongs to a goddess the Thebans call Meridian, she who loves silence, a cobra who guards the resting places of the dead. It is a fitting name for this hour. On your side of the river, the living, on the far side, the dead, and over both, the same slow turning of stars. You tip your head back and let the whole sky fill your eyes. For the people of this land, what you are looking at is not an emptiness scattered with lights. It is a body. The sky is the goddess Nut, stretched over the earth from one horizon to the other, her fingertips resting on the western hills, her toes on the eastern desert. Every star you have watched tonight travels along her. Below her lies Geb, the earth. Between them stands Shu, the god of the air, holding the sky apart from the land. You have spent half the night measuring stars. It is worth remembering, once a watch, what the measuring rests on. At sunset, so the teaching runs, Nut swallowed the sun. You watched it happen from this roof. The red disk touched the western horizon, which is her mouth, and passed inside her. All night the sun travels through her body, hidden from the living world. Toward morning it will have made the whole crossing, and at dawn she will give birth to it in the east, new and red as every newborn is red. It will grow strong, climb the sky, and return to her mouth again at dusk. Egypt does not fear the dark sky. Night is simply the time when the sun is on the inside of the goddess. None of this is loose talk, it is written down. The scholars of the temples keep a treatise called The Fundamentals of the Course of the Stars, which lays out the figure of Nut, the road of the sun, and the schedule of the star clock in careful order. A copy was carved in the shrine King Seti built at Abydos, some 140 years before your watch tonight. And in these very years, across the river, carvers are setting the same figure of Nut, with the same rows of stars along her body, into the ceiling of a tomb being cut for a king. What you practice on this roof, the ceilings underground repeat. While Nut carries the sun, the priests describe its road as a journey through the Duat, the world beneath, divided into 12 hours, one for each hour you keep on this roof. The sun god travels by boat, as everything of weight in Egypt travels, and each hour of the night brings the boat to another region with its own gates and its own keepers. The hours you read from the stars are the same hours the god is passing below. That is why your count matters to the temple. The rites in the dark halls under your feet are time to keep company, hour by hour, with that hidden voyage. The deepest point comes at the 6th hour, the very middle of the night. There, the teaching says, the sun reaches the floor of the Duat and is joined for a time with Osiris, Lord of the Dead, the way a flame is joined to its wick. It is the stillest moment of the whole journey, and the most necessary. From that meeting the sun takes the strength to be born again at dawn. If your count has run true, that moment has already passed somewhere far beneath you while you sat watching the meridian. The rest of the night, below as above, is a long, slow turning toward morning. There is one hindrance on the road. In the hours after the union, a great serpent waits by the underworld river and tries to drink the water out from under the boat. The texts give it a name, Apep, and they are quite matter-of-fact about it. The serpent is turned aside, as it is turned aside every night by the words of protection spoken from the boat, and the voyage continues. No priest in Thebes loses sleep over the serpent. Its defeat is part of the order of things, as regular as the drip of the clock beside you, and the boat moves on toward the eastern horizon. The stars themselves make the same journey, for Nut swallows them too. Each of the 36 decans, when its season ends, sets in the west and leaves the night sky altogether. The treatise says the star spends 70 days in the Duat, resting and purifying itself before it rises again in the east before dawn, fresh as Sopdet rising in midsummer. 70 days is also the span the embalmers allow for preparing a body for burial, and it is hard to believe the two numbers are strangers. In this country, even the stars die, are made clean, and come back. Nothing is lost. Everything keeps its schedule. You bring your eyes down to the northern rim of the sky, where the stars behave differently. The Egyptians divide the stars into two families. Low over the north turn the ones that never set at all, circling an empty center point night after night, year after year. The old texts call them Ikemusek, the ones not knowing destruction. Chief among them is Mesketiu, the foreleg of the bull, The 7 bright stars a modern eye knows as the Big Dipper, and on temple ceilings the foreleg is shown tethered to a mooring post, held fast by a hippopotamus goddess, free to circle forever and never able to wander off. The other family is the one you have worked with all night. The stars that rise in the east, cross the sky, and go down in the west. The texts call them wnwty, the ones not knowing weariness, a name, you think at this hour, given by someone who never kept the third watch. Their great figures are Sa, the wide-striding constellation a modern eye knows as Orion, who is Osiris in the sky, and Sopdet, the brightest star of all, who is Isis. The oldest royal prayers, carved in the pyramids of kings dead 1,000 years and more, already ask that the king rise and join both families. Your own night is growing old along with the sun's. The water in the calcite clock stands low against its scale of drilled marks. Only a few hours' worth remains above the small opening where the drops slip away. The Decan that will rule the last hour of darkness has not yet risen, but you know where it will come up, low on the eastern rim. Below you the temple is beginning, very quietly, to lean toward morning. The night rites keep their sequence in the dark halls, hour by hour, as they have since dusk, and every hour you call down to them brings the lighting of the fire 1 hour nearer. You know what the first light will set in motion, because it is carved in relief in the temple King Seti raised at Abydos and written in the service books, the same sequence every morning of every year. A fire will be kindled, a censer will be taken up, charcoal and incense breathing thin, sweet smoke. Before the shrine of Amun, the officiating priest will snap the dried clay seal pressed onto the door cord the evening before, untie the cord, and draw back the bolt. And as the doors open, the singers will greet the god with the old words, "Awake in peace." Awake, they will sing, in peace gently, the way one wakes a sleeping elder. None of that is yours to perform. Your part ends earlier, at the first graying of the east, when another priest climbs the stair to take the watch from your hands. The duty turns through the temple's staff in ordered groups, month by month, as it has for centuries. The man who relieves you will look over the merkit, the bay, and the level of the clock, and agree with you that all is in order. Then comes the tired, pleasant walk down the dark stair, one hand on the cool stone, toward the smell of bread beginning somewhere near the priest's quarters. But all of that is still hours away. For now the night is at its stillest, and there is nothing to do but keep it company. The lamp burns small and steady in its saucer of oil. The clock lets go of its drops one at a time. Overhead, the 2 families of stars go about their 2 kinds of forever, circling and crossing, not knowing destruction, not knowing weariness. You settle your back against the parapet and let your breathing slow toward the pace of the water. Somewhere far below, the sun is being carried toward morning. It does not need your help. Nothing in this hour needs anything from you at all. It is the deepest part of the night now, and the roof has grown very quiet. The wind that crossed the parapet all evening has worn down to a breath of air, high and pale and hardly there. Under you the stone still holds a little of the day's warmth, faint as the heat of a hand withdrawn. The priest sits where he has sat for hours, his plumb line hanging still. The water falls in its vessel, thread thin. Nothing on this roof is hurried. Nothing on this roof is waiting. The stars come on in their own order, and the night is deep, and you rest inside it. Overhead the sky has reached its full depth. To the priest it is a body, Nut, whose arched form is the sky itself, stretched from the eastern desert to the western hills, her hands and feet at the horizons, every star held somewhere along her. Nothing up there is loose. Nothing up there can fall out of its place. What crosses the meridian crosses because it is carried, the whole sky turning together, quiet as stone. The wind moves once along the parapet and settles. You lie beneath that, turning the way the temple lies beneath it. And the city and the river, held and known and very still. All night the stars have come to the line of the plumb, one after another, each in its hour. The priest has named them as they came. He will go on naming them until dawn, but the naming is his, not yours. You may watch a star approach the meridian, high and pale, and let it cross without asking anything of it. It crosses just the same. Another comes behind it, at the pace of the sky, which has never hurried in all its turning. The count continues somewhere near you, in a murmur, in wet ink. It no longer passes through you. The night is deep enough now that watching and resting feel the same. Beside the parapet, the water clock goes on giving up its water, a thread falling into the basin with a sound smaller than the wind. The basin accepts each drop without complaint. Earlier in the night you could follow everyone. Now the sound has begun to step back from you, the way a lamp in a far window steps back when mist comes off the river. It is still there. It will be there until morning, falling at the pace set for it long ago. You do not follow the drops anymore. They land at the edge of hearing, quiet, quiet, and each one takes the night a little deeper. Below you the temple has settled into its own stillness. The last lamps in the inner halls have been trimmed low, and the courts lie open to the stars, pale floors between deep walls. Somewhere under the roof the god rests in his shrine, the doors sealed for the night, the incense long since faded into the stone. No one is walking the corridors now. No one needs to. The building does what it was built to do in the dark. It stands and holds its quiet, and waits for a morning that is still far on the other side of the sky. Beyond the temple wall, the city has put out most of its small fires. Here and there an ember light still shows in a doorway, and then it is gone, and the houses stand in rows under the same deep sky. The river moves without sound at this distance, a pale band between the fields, carrying nothing but the reflection of stars. Across the water, the western hills lie low and still. Even the dogs have gone quiet in the lanes. Everyone who can sleep is sleeping now. Farmers, boatmen, scribes, children on the roofs of the houses, all of them breathing in the dark below the same turning stars that pass above your watch. The priest shifts his weight and steadies the palm rib against the night. He is awake in the way that only a man on duty is awake, patiently, thinly, with nothing left over. He does not need your attention. The hours will be found whether you follow them or not, written in red and black beside his knee. Your part of the night is different now. Your part is the resting. You may lie against the parapet with the stone still holding its faint warmth, and let the roof hold you, and be one more quiet thing among the quiet things the stars pass over. The wind crosses the roof once more, and then it too seems to rest. The air goes still from one edge of the terrace to the other, still over the parapet, still over the instruments, still over your hands. In that stillness, the night sounds sort themselves and grow simple. The thin fall of water, the priests read whispering on papyrus, and beneath both, nothing at all, a silence as wide as the valley. You are not listening for anything anymore. Whatever happens next in the sky will happen at its own pace, high above the roof, whether anyone counts it or not. One star comes to the meridian, it crosses, and it is past. Another rises toward the line, pale over the eastern desert, and there is no need to mark it. It will cross whether it is marked or not. That is the kindness of the sky at this hour. It asks nothing. The sky is patient in a way nothing on earth is patient. The stars that were counted and the stars that were not counted travel at the same pace, in the same order, on the same deep road. This one may go by uncounted. The next may go by uncounted too. The night does not lose them. Nothing in the sky can be lost. The sky does not work at its turning. Nut holds the stars the way the river holds its reflections, without gripping, without effort, every one of them resting on her even as they move. The imperishable stars circle the north and never set. The traveling stars cross from east to west and are carried under the world and come back. None of them hurries. None of them tires. The turning has gone on every night that has ever been, and it goes on now, high and quiet above the roof, and it will go on while you rest. exactly as it goes on while you watch. Your own weight has grown pleasant against the stone. The warmth the roof gathered all day rises into you slowly, the last of it, a quiet gift from a sun that set hours ago. Your hands have nothing to hold. Your eyes have nothing to find. If they close, the stars go on without them. If they open, there the stars still are, in their places, unhurried, deep beyond deep. Each breath comes a little lower than the one before it. There is no task left in you. The night has taken them all, one by one, and set them down somewhere out of reach, where they can wait until morning. Far at the edge of hearing, the water clock is still falling, drop after drop after drop. You could not count them now if you tried, and you are not trying. The counting is passed out of you entirely, the way warmth passes out of stone, gradually, without a moment you could point to. It belongs to the priest, and to the vessel, and to the marked hours inside the rim, and none of it belongs to you. What is left to you is simpler. The deep sky, the still roof, the quiet falling of water somewhere behind the world, steady, faint, already half a dream. A star comes to the line. A star goes past the line. There is nothing you need to do about either of these things. The sky turns, and the roof is still, and the two of them have an old agreement that was never yours to keep. Another star comes on, another goes past. The interval between them is long and even, like the spacing of palms along a canal. If sleep is near you now, it is allowed to come the rest of the way. The priest will not mind. The stars will not mind. High above the valley they continue in their pale order, one and one and one, unhurried, uncounted, and complete. The roof is far beneath the sky, and you are somewhere between them, held by both. Stone below, stars above, and the night moving through its hours without any help. Nothing calls from the stair. Nothing waits under the lamps. What you watched, you can release. What you learned, you can set down. It will all still be true in the morning, and the morning is not your concern. The dark lies even from edge to edge. The air lies even from edge to edge. Everything that rises, rises quietly. Everything that falls, falls quietly. And between them the world balances, deep and pale and still, the way it has balanced every night since nights began. So the watch continues, and you are excused from it. The plumb line hangs without trembling. The water finds the basin, drop by distant drop. The stars come one by one to the meridian and pass, uncounted, in the deep order Nut holds for them, and not one of them will be missing when you wake. There is nothing to finish. There is nothing to hold. The sky turns on its own, high and pale and endless, and the roof rests, and the river rests, and somewhere inside the great quiet of it all, you are permitted, at last, to be perfectly still.
You've reached the end of tonight's archive. If you're still awake, thank you for staying. And if you drifted off somewhere in the dark, then it did its work. Rest now. The next chapter will be here when you are. Sleep well. This has been Archive Whispers.